2 Samuel chapter 5. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and spoke, saying, Here we are, your own flesh and blood. Even before, when Shaul was king over us, it was you who led Israel out and back. Also Adonai said to you, You will shepherd my people Israel and be ruler over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron, and King David cut a covenant with them at Hebron before Adonai. When they anointed David king over Israel, David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. Now the king and his soldiers marched to Jerusalem against the Jebusites and the inhabitants of the region. But they said to David, You'll never get in here. Even the blind and the lame could ward you off, thinking David can't get in here. Nevertheless, David did capture the stronghold of Zion, that is the city of David. On that day, David said, Whoever would conquer the Jebusites must strike through the water shaft to those lame and blind whom David so despises. That is why they used to say the blind or lame couldn't get into the house. So David occupied the stronghold and renamed it the City of David. Then David fortified it all around from the Millo inward. David continued to grow stronger, for Adonai Elohim Tzavaot was with him. Then King Hiram of Tyre sent envoys to David with cedar logs, carpenters, and masons, and they built a palace for David. David then realized that Adonai had established him as king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. Then David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem after he came from Hebron, and more sons and daughters were born to David. Now these are the names of those who were born to him in Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphelet. Now when the Philistines heard that David was anointed king over Israel, all the Philistines marched up searching for David. When David heard about it, he went down to the stronghold. The Philistines came and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. Then David inquired of Adonai, saying, Should I go up against the Philistines? Will you give them over into my hand? Adonai answered David, Go up, for I will certainly give the Philistines over into your hand. So David came to Baal Perazim, and David struck them down there. So he said, Adonai has broken through my enemies before me like the breakthrough of waters. That is why he named that place Baal Perazim. They abandoned their idols there, so David and his men removed them. But the Philistines marched up and spread out in the valley of Rephaim again. When David inquired of Adonai, he said, Do not go up. Instead, circle around behind them and attack them in front of the balsam trees. Now it will be when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees, then you must act. But for then Adonai will have gone out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines. David did just as Adonai had commanded him, and he struck down the Philistines from Geba as far as Gezer. Chapter 6. Now David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. Then David and all the people who were with him arose and set out from Baale, Judah, to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the very name of Adonai Tzavaot, who is enthroned between the cherubim. So they loaded the ark of God on a new cart and carried it out of the house of Ahinadab that was on the hill. Uzzah and Ahio, Abinadab's sons drove the new cart as they brought it from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, with the ark of God, and Ahio was walking in front of the ark. Meanwhile, David and the whole house of Israel were celebrating before Adonai with all kinds of instruments made of cypress wood, with harps, lyres, tambourines, three-stringed instruments, and cymbals. But when they reached the threshing floor of Nahon, Uzzah reached out to the ark of God and grasped it, for the oxen had stumbled. Then the anger of Adonai was kindled against Uzzah. God struck him down there for his irreverence, so that he died there beside the ark of God. David was upset because of Adonai's outburst against Uzzah. That place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. So David was frightened of Adonai that day. Then he said, "How can the ark of Adonai come to me?" Adonai was unwilling to move the ark of Adonai to him, to the city of David. Instead, David diverted it to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. So the ark of Adonai remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. Meanwhile, Adonai blessed Obed-Edom and his entire household. Then it was reported to King David, saying, "Adonai has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him, because of the ark of God." So David went and brought the ark of God up from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with joy. Now when the bearers of the ark of Adonai had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. Meanwhile, David was dancing before Adonai with all his might, while he was wearing a linen ephod. So David and the entire house of Israel brought up the ark of Adonai with shouting and with the sound of the shofar. But as the ark of Adonai entered the city of David, Shaul's daughter Michal looked out of the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Adonai, so she despised him in his heart. They brought in the ark of Adonai and set it in its place in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it. Then David offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before Adonai. When David had finished offering the burnt offering and fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of Adonai Tavaot. Then he distributed to all the people, to the whole multitude of Israel, men and women alike, to everyone a loaf of bread, a cake made in a pan, and a raisin cake. Then all the people departed, each to his home. David returned to bless his own household, but Shaul's daughter Michal came out to meet David and said, "How the king of Israel distinguished himself today, when he uncovered himself today in the eyes of the slave girls of his subjects, as any vulgar fellow would shamelessly uncover himself." It was before Adonai, David said to Michal, "who chose me instead of your father and all his household, appointing me ruler over the people of Adonai over Israel. So I danced before Adonai, and will dishonor myself even more than this, and will be low in my own eyes. Yet in the eyes of the slave girls whom you mentioned, I will be honored." So Shaul's daughter Michal had no children to the day of her death. Chapter 7. Now it came about when the king lived in his palace, and Adonai had granted him rest from all his enemies around him, that the king said to the prophet Nathan, "See now, I am living in a house of cedar, yet the ark of God remains within curtains. Go do all that is in your heart." Nathan said to the king, "For Adonai is with you." But it came to pass the same night that the word of Adonai came to Nathan, saying, "Go, tell my servant David, thus says Adonai, are you to build me a house for me to dwell in? Since the day that I brought up the children of Israel from Egypt to this day, I have not dwelt in a house. but have been moving about in a tent, even in a tabernacle. In all my journeying among all the children of Israel, did I ever speak a word to any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, saying, Why have you not built me a house of cedar? So now thus you shall say to my servant David, Thus says Adonai Tsabaoth, I took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people, over Israel. I have been with you wherever you went, and have cut off all your enemies from before you, and I will make your name as great as the greatest on earth. I will also set up a place for my people Israel, and will plant them so they may dwell in their own place and not be disturbed again. Now will the children of wickedness afflict them any more, nor will the children of wickedness afflict them any more as in the past, since the day that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel. So I will give you rest from all your enemies. Moreover, Adonai declares to you that Adonai will make a house for you. When your days are done and you sleep with your fathers, I will raise up your seed, who will come forth from you after you, and I will establish his kingdom. He will build a house for my name, and I will establish his royal throne forever. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. If he commits iniquity, I will correct him with the rod of men and with a stroke from the sons of men. Yet my loving kindness will not be withdrawn from him, as I withdrew it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. So your house and your kingship will be secure forever before you. Your throne will be established forever. Just so Nathan spoke all these words and all of this vision to David. Then King David went in and sat before Adonai and said, Who am I, my Lord Adonai, and what is my family that you have brought me this far? Yet this was a small thing in your eyes, my Lord Adonai, for you have spoken also of your servant's house for the distant future. This is a revelation for humanity, my Lord Adonai. What more can David add in speaking to you? For you already know your servant, my Lord Adonai. For the sake of your word and according to your own heart, you have done everything great, revealing this to your servant. Therefore you are great, my Lord Adonai, for there is none like you, and there is no other God besides you. As well, all have heard with our ears that what one nation on earth is like your people, like Israel, whom God went to redeem for himself as a people, to make for himself a name, to do for you a great thing and awesome deeds for your land, before your people whom you redeemed for yourself from Egypt, driving out nations and their gods. So you established for yourself your people Israel as your very own people forever, and you, Adonai, have become their God. So now, my Lord Adonai, confirm the word that you have spoken concerning your servant and his house forever, and do as you have promised. Yet let your name be magnified forever by saying, Adonai Tsabaoth is God over Israel. May the house of your servant David be established before you. For you, Adonai Tsabaoth, God of Israel, have made a revelation to your servant, saying, I will build you a house. Therefore your servant has found his heart to pray this prayer to you. So now, my Lord Adonai, you alone are God, and your words are true, and you have promised your servant this good thing. So now let it please to you to bless the house of your servant, to continue forever before you. For you, my Lord Adonai, have spoken, and with your blessing your servant's house will be blessed forever. Chapter 8. Now afterward David attacked the Philistines and subdued them, and took Metheg Ammah from the hand of the Philistines. He also defeated Moab. He made them lie down on the ground and measured them with a cord. Every 2 measures of them were put to death, and the 3rd measures was kept alive. So the Moabites became vassals to David, bringing tribute. David also defeated King Hadadezer, son of Rehob of Zobah, as he went to restore his dominion along the river. David captured from him 1,700 horsemen and 20,000 foot soldiers, and David hamstrung all the chariot horses, while reserving 100 of them for chariots. When the Arameans of Damascus came to the aid of King Hadadezer of Zobah, David struck down 22,000 Aramean men. Then David stationed garrisons in Aram of Damascus, and the Arameans became vassals to David, bringing tribute. So Adonai gave victory to David wherever he went. David also took the golden shields of Hadadezer's officers and brought them to Jerusalem. From Betah, Berothai, towns of Hadadezer, King David took a vast amount of bronze. Now when King Toi of Hamath heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer, Toi sent his son Joram to King David to greet him and congratulate him on his victory in battle over Hadadezer, for Hadadezer had been at war with Toi. Joram brought with him articles of silver, gold, and bronze. These 2 King David consecrated to Adonai, along with the silver and gold that he had consecrated from all the nations that he had subdued, from Aram, Moab, the Ammonite, the Philistines, Amalek, and from the spoil of Hadadezer, son of Rehob, king of Zobah. Then David made a name for himself when he returned from striking 18,000 down from Edom in the valley of Salt. Then he stationed garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom, he stationed garrisons so that all the Edomites became vassals to David. So Adonai gave victory to David wherever he went. David reigned over all Israel, and David executed justice and righteousness for all his people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was commander over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Abimelech, son of Abiathar, were Kohanim. Seraiah was scribe. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and David's son were chief ministers.